There we
Yeah,
go.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, and then in that case, I'm going to call to order the Larkspur Planning Commission meeting of October 26th, 2021. And this is I would like to ask, I guess, first for the roll call.
Okay, I'm looking at faces from top to bottom. Vice Chair Kunstler,
present.
Commissioner Tauber,
Present.
Chair Wagstaff,
Here,
Commissioner Swisher,
Here.
and Commissioner Chalmers.
Yeah, here.
so
Let the record show they're all present.
everybody's here. So this is again, a remote meeting, and people who are attending are attending as guests. And if you want to speak, you need to raise your hand and you'll be called on. And if anybody's having any trouble, there's a website you can go to, and also there's a call-in number for those who would like to call in. I would ask first if there's any public comment on things that are not on the agenda.
If anyone has comments on anything not on the agenda, please hit the raise hand icon. Not seeing anything.
Okay. Can we have the planning director's report?
Okay, thank you, Chair Wagstaff and members of the commission. You have a pretty short agenda tonight. It could be pretty quick. My report might even be longer than the rest of your agenda. I'll try to make it brief, but there are a few things I do want to get you up to date on. A lot of activity, particularly in the area of housing of late. But before I jump into housing, I do want to let you know, as I've reported, the city has been endeavoring on a program to implement new software to get ourselves into the 21st century, and particularly more adept and agile in this in the pandemic and post-pandemic work environment. I think we all understand there's likelihood that we'll continue to function in somewhat of a remote matter when engaging more at work. Hopefully not as so much at meetings, but at work. And so this is really a valuable tool, not just for staff internally and staff who might be able to work at home or working with consultants, but also working with clients and the public, being able to hold meetings with people without them necessarily having to travel to work or to the city hall, to be able to submit detailed information online, things like this. It's been a long process. We've been actually in the process of implementing the software after coming to an agreement with what's commonly known as Trackit, a company that manages that. The last 1.5 to 2 months have been pretty intense, preparing workbooks that then instruct the software, the company and vendor, how to actually configure the software. They use filling out workbooks, filling out information sheets. We inform them kind of how we operate, how it fits with their software, then they configure the software. That's been pretty intensive. We should be getting through it over the next week or two. And then it'll be a little easier on staff, but I do want to let you know, as much as we maybe haven't been having a lot of meetings or seeming real busy, we're actually quite busy behind the scenes. Kristen doing a lot of work on that, myself and our permit tech, Jim Kerrigan, working on how to set up the permitting. And a lot of what we're doing today is to try to, after Kristen and I have left, future staff members can have great tools that fit with the city's processes and codes. So a lot of attention is going into that. In the housing front, you were recently invited, I think earlier today, to a community meeting to be held on Thursday evening regarding the San Quentin surplus property. It is the proposal accepted by the state for the village at Oak Hill. So that's going to be a presentation, sort of I believe they're going to be doing kind of a round table format style. And in that meeting, will be Senator Mike McGuire, Mark Levine, the deputy director of state Department of General Services, and that's the agency that manages the land and construction and contracting for awarding these types of contracts and projects. And then the project sponsors, Education Housing Partners and Eden Housing. Eden Housing is sponsoring the low income housing component of the project, and Education Housing Partners is largely partnering with the school districts to develop what would be moderate income teacher housing. And I believe there will be representatives from local school districts participating in that meeting too. We just got wind of this recently, and we apologize. Unfortunately, it's somewhat late notice, but hopefully you can attend the meeting. I believe it will be recorded if you're unable to attend that. We've also noted, I think you've got notice there's going to be a second forum on the project, what's called the Home Key Project at 1251 South Alicio Boulevard. That is a project that is sponsored by the County of Marin, partnering with the Episcopal Community Services of San Francisco to leverage Home Key state housing funds in order to provide transitional housing in a site that's been vacant for many years and was most recently used for a very similar type of use, Marin Women's Shelter. So that's a forum that will be presented. There was one last Thursday, and there'll be another one on Thursday, November 4th. And if you need any information on that, I can resend the links. And that'll be hosted by county staff and ECS as well. To let you know, you've probably heard Senate Bill 9 was signed by the governor almost a month ago, and agencies are scrambling to really try to understand the full implications of this legislation, which, like ADUs, creates mandates and sort of by right overrides to allow property owners in single family districts to potentially split their lots and potentially develop 2-unit buildings in a by right sort of approach. We're just working with other agencies, working with our fire department to understand what local controls can be assigned based on our current zoning standards, what kind of procedures we can assign for this. It will go into effect on January 1st. And our understanding, and we're working with our legal representatives, our city, our council, legal counsel, that is, on potentially developing an MOU, kind of a temporary measure to be able to more or less by policy manage proposals that come in until we get really clear direction and guidance from the state. The state has not provided what is typically provided for these types of fairly significant changes or mandates to regulations, whether it's zoning or health and safety. There's typically guidance put out to provide clearer framework, not just the statutory language, which is very difficult to absorb or necessarily integrate into practice, but to provide practical guidance, examples of either ordinances or resolutions. And none of that's provided. There's very little time to do so. So a lot of communities are looking towards emergency kind of resolutions or MOUs as an approach. we'll be providing more information on that. But I did want to let you know it is on our radar. It's an issue that's being discussed amongst all the agencies in Marin, and we'll be certainly continuing to look for the interests of the community of Larkspur. And particularly a concern of the fire department is the potential for developing more units and creating more congestion from emergency escape routes in those areas that are considered to be wildland urban interface and very high severity fire hazard zones by local ordinance. Another item on housing is, as we've sent out notice that to you, and that we will be holding a joint planning commission and city council meeting next week at the city council meeting on Wednesday evening. You will be getting an invite from the city clerk on that. On that agenda, we will have our contracted housing element consultant doing a presentation on the general work program and timelines for the housing element update through the next year. Significant project elements are going to be the community outreach and discussion, community feedback, how we gather that through surveys, a website, and other forms of outreach through mailers, and seeking special community groups, things like that. So one of those major elements is going to be outreach. We're working with the county and the region on developing our needs assessment. That's going to be a lot of demographics and data that inform the needs for Larkspur, and as well as reviewing sites, those sites that we have in our current housing element that may carry over, and some of the restrictions and limitations that occur for carrying over sites, as well as identifying potential new sites and creating a discussion around those sites and what actions might be necessary in order to yield housing to meet our RENA needs in those areas. And finally, of course, the policies and programs necessary to meet our housing needs. So those will all be topics we'll begin to explore starting at our meeting on Wednesday, and not really going into detail there, but more providing the framework of that process. Included in that meeting, we're going to have a presentation from the County of Marin housing staff. And that presentation is going to be partially regarding the county's restrictive covenant program. And that's a program to assist homeowners in identifying and amending their deeds to identify where deeds include illegal and restrictive language. So they'll have a presentation on that and a presentation on countywide fair housing initiatives, including the program and the state mandates to affirmatively further fair housing. We call it the AFFH mandates requirement. And this is very informative towards the housing element process. One of the key components of the housing element process in this new cycle will be identifying sites and programs that affirmatively further fair housing and targeting those communities, both in needs and creating more diversity in the community. So I encourage, please let me know if you're going to have any trouble attending that meeting, but I think it'll be very informative to the process moving forward. And by the way, I do want to let you know, I will actually be leaving. I'll be on a plane flight to Hawaii that day. I'm going to be gone from the 3rd through the 13th of November. This was a trip that my wife and I had planned many months back sort of at the point that COVID was somewhat receding, and well before all this timing, and even before my point of announcing my retirement. So it was a long planned vacation, our first trip of any extent for quite a time since before lockdown. So apologize, I won't be there, but I will be working to help set up the presentation. We're working directly right now. I'm working with the consultant Andy Flowers and EMC on our sites, working on really evaluating both our existing site inventory as well as sites throughout the city, and those that we should really throw into the pot for the community discussion on this challenging topic. So with that, do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Neil? Do we have any sense for who is going to make that meeting on Wednesday? Or
Anyone unable to attend?
Yeah, I think. Okay.
sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, I encourage you. I think it'll be additionally helpful that as opposed to watching recorded meetings or having separate meetings, it'll be particularly helpful to have both the commission and the city council in the room during the period of particularly the Q&A, any questions that come from the council, questions from the commission that get answered. I think that will be helpful to kind of see any additional viewpoints from the two bodies, as ultimately one of the very challenging aspects of adopting any sort of zoning or general plan or housing element from a time crunch perspective is that it must first be heard and reviewed by the planning commission. Any final determinations and programs, actions, the housing element must be heard and by the planning commission and then to the city council for final adoption. So.
And that meeting's at 6:30, is it not?
That's correct.
So it's 6:30, and it's live in the room?
No, this will still be online. In regards to live meetings, the word currently from the city manager is, as of right now, the council is still going to be holding meetings through the online format. We are working with the other agencies and Marin TV on the process for creating hybrid meetings, because that will be the next format. It is likely that into the next year, early in the next year, we'll begin exploring hybrid meetings and working on that with the city council, planning commission, and the other boards.
Okay, good question, because I was wondering that too.
Yeah, me too.
All right, any other questions? We actually tonight have a consent item. I think this might be my first one. So this would be adopted unless unless somebody on the commission or somebody in the audience would like to remove this item from consent. Is there anybody who wants to do that? Do you see any hands from attendees?
Is there anyone in the audience who would like us to take this off the consent calendar so you can comment on the application? You can raise your hand. I don't see anything.
Evidently not.
No.
I guess it's just unanimously adopted. Is that how that works, or
You
I
need to
would
be-
move approval of the consent calendar.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Do we need a roll call, Kristen?
Commissioner Kunstler,
Aye.
Commissioner Tauber,
Aye.
Chair Wagstaff,
Aye.
Commissioner Chalmers,
Aye.
Commissioner Swisher.
Aye.
So this motion passes 5-0, no one voting against it.
It's a nice looking project. So I guess we need to move on to business items, approval of the minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Okay, I'll move to approve the minutes of the Larkspur Planning Commission meeting of September 28th, 2021.
I'll second.
Yeah, all in favor?
I'm
Aye.
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 Do a
Subject
roll
to,
call, Neil, for this?
You,
yeah, I agree, subject to a slight spelling mistake on it's disappointed, not disappointing.
What page is that?
Oh, I forget now. It was the second matter on it. They're really minor. Page 4. 7, 8 paragraph down. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that I can actually speak
Yeah.
grammatically correct English.
she is disappointing.
I'm not sure that's the way I heard it, Natasha. I don't
Oh,
know.
no. You're right. It's my grammar.
I don't see it. I'm blind.
It's at the top of your screen.
Right, wait.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Commissioner Chalmers
fix it.
stated she is disappointing.
You're definitely not disappointing.
Okay.
Okay, we'll correct that.
Okay. Do we do a roll call or did we decide we don't need that?
Do I need to do a roll call for minutes, Neil? They all said aye universally. There was no.
I think
nay.
we can say all in favor.
Okay.
aye.
Okay, are there,
Roll calls are really, it's good habit, but obviously it's more critical to identify any divided vote.
any planning commissioner reports? Anybody out there? Would somebody like to move to adjourn the meeting?
I'd love to move to adjourn the meeting. I will do that right now. I move to adjourn the meeting.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. That was a nice short meeting.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Chairman and everyone. I won't see you next week, but hopefully it'll be a productive presentation and Q&A because